How we doing, guys? It's James, and welcome to my first critical reflection vlog. Today I'm going to be talking about Bella Hooks' Feminism is for Everybody, which I notice is what a grand majority of all the other students talked about in the first vlog, and I think it for good reason, because it was a great introduction to feminism for a lot of people who had never heard of a lot of the key terms within the movement and sub-movements and cultures within the umbrella of feminism. It was a very light and fast read. I read it in a day, and yeah, I'm just gonna jump right into it. So, Hooks defines feminism as a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression on the first page, and she attempts to redefine feminism so it doesn't immediately suggest that it's an ideology based on opposing men. And I think this is really smart because I think, which Hooks emphasizes several times throughout the book, that the main issue with the perception of feminism in mainstream American culture, at least, is that it's associated with, I mean, we've all heard the stereotypes, very, angry women who only want to oppose men, all of our interests, who have no legitimate political or social arguments against us, or men in general. And instead, she attempts to explain that feminism is opposing the issues that are perpetuated by both men and women. So sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression, while are issues that maintain the patriarchal system, which is the system that puts men in a dominant position against women, is actually something that can be maintained and perpetuated by women as well. So I think that was a very important point. I think it was a very strong introduction into her book, because I think that's one of the main catalysts into inviting everybody into the movement. Because another point that she made is that no one is born a feminist. You're not a feminist just because you were born a woman. You're not a feminist because you were born a white woman. Someone who is a feminist is someone who has attained a degree of awareness that the current system, the current American culture, is based on one dominated by wealthy, white, usually Christian men, able-bodied men. And in order for men or women of any race, culture, class to recognize this, they must be aware of the degree of oppression that occurs on a variety of subsects. Now, this means the oppression of not just white women, but women of color, poor women of any race, non-able-bodied women, disabled women, as well as any other type of woman who doesn't fit the status quo of being a straight, white, heteronormative, able-bodied Christian woman, in my opinion. So I think that was a really good point that she made, because it is important for both men and women to come, because it is necessary for men to join women in the struggle to fight feminism. It's not something that women alone can overcome by themselves. It's something that you have to reform from the inside out. Now, the reason I like this book is because each chapter goes through a variety of different subsects of feminism. So it talks about, for example, feminism in class, global feminism, women at work, race and gender, talks about masculinity. So it kind of touches on and gives the basic concepts and understanding of each issue and subsect of feminism. And the one that I really took a lot from was the chapter of reproductive rights and sexual liberation. So this chapter is all about the notion that women's sexual liberation, which was a movement in 70s, 80s, was only something that can go hand in hand with women being granted full reproductive rights. Now, this means women having access to safe, legal, and affordable, sometimes free abortions. Because the idea is, if a woman is sexually liberated, that means that she has the ability to have sex or sleep with whomever she wants, whoever she wants, without facing the cultural resistance, the stigmas that have been associated with it. But in order for women to do this, since women biologically are obviously able to become pregnant, as opposed to men, they must have access to full sexual education, contraceptives, as well as safe, legal, and accessible abortions. Now, one of the institutions that has been created for this issue is Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is an institution or an organization that is designed to receive government funding so that mainly women of color, or excuse me, lower class women who typically are women of color are able to receive these, safe and legal accessible abortions that were not accessible before Roe v. Wade and all the other landmark Supreme Court cases that allowed women to finally have access to abortions. Well, not access, but they had the legal right to have these abortions. So Planned Parenthood is, as you all know, under attack today for receiving minimal funding by the government. As you know, it's something that has been played into partisan politics, typically by the right, and it is something that because it threatens a woman's ability to receive abortions, contraceptives, sexual education, as well as women's rights too. They are not able to be truly, fully sexually liberated in American society. Now this is interesting because Planned Parenthood, as I mentioned, is something that is usually only accessible, or should be accessible, to lower class women and women of color. However, because of this is due to the concept of class power that white women often have over women of color. So white women in the United States, at least upper class women, while they are women and they do have that right to have abortions threatened, they also usually have the monetary means, financial means to receive abortions that's not from Planned Parenthood, but instead from the primary care physician or some other source of healthcare provider that simply isn't accessible to lower class women, which is another issue in itself. I could talk about the healthcare system all day. But true feminism advocates for safe, legal, and affordable abortions for all women. This transcends class and often the divide between white women and women of color. So while women of color, lower class women, and white women both need to be on the same side for maintaining the legal right of abortion, the divide between the two comes in the class structure, the class power, where white women are able to receive these abortions much easily than women of color. So she throws in a quote here that I liked. It was called, "If we return to a world where abortions are only accessible to those females with lots of money, we risk the return of public policy that will aim to make abortion illegal." So essentially what it means is the motivation for white women to support lower class and women of color in maintaining not only legal abortions but accessible abortions through Planned Parenthood is the fact that if Planned Parenthood is abolished, it'll give policymakers, conservatives, Republicans, more reasons to push back against abortion and eventually erode away at the legal right. So this will also affect the upper class white women, and they'll no longer have that class power to access abortions. So it is extremely crucial for women to band together of all statuses and maintain their right to receive their health concerns. That was mainly the biggest thing I took away from this book, and I would like to wrap this up by saying thank you for joining in on my vlog, and I will see you guys all in a week. Thank you.